Hi, are you more tired than you should be? Do you have afternoon crashes? I'm going to talk about adrenal fatigue, what it is, what causes it, and what you can do about it. My name is Hilma Volk. I was a massage therapist for 23 years and I'm also a certified nutritional coach. Anyway, adrenal fatigue. Several years ago I was cross-country skiing with a couple other people, and I'm a good cross-country skier, but these guys, these other two, were a lot stronger than I was, so I had to really struggle to keep up, and we were out for maybe 3 hours. And on the way home, which was about an hour drive, I was struggling to stay awake. And when we got to the parking lot, the guy who was driving said, "Well, I'm going to go swim some laps." And I'm thinking, hey, you got to be kidding. Because I went home, I crashed on the couch and fell asleep for 3 hours. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? Because here I am exercising, which should be energizing. I was out in fresh air, which should be energizing. We were on the Montana-Idaho border, which it's pretty fresh air, and out in the sunshine, which should be energizing, and I was whipped. So I had a client who was a naturopath, and I went to him and I said, "What's wrong with me?" And I explained, and he said, "Oh, you have adrenal fatigue." Oh. I looked it up and found out that a lot of doctors don't believe it exists. There are some doctors who do, of course, but whether or not it exists or not, if it looks like a duck and swims like a duck and quacks like a duck and likes duck food, whether or not it's a duck or not doesn't matter, just feed it duck food, right? Okay, so what is adrenal fatigue? What do the adrenals do, and how do you tell what the symptoms are, and what can you do about it? Okay. The adrenal glands are near the kidneys, and they're very vital for our metabolism and well-being. And one of the main hormones they produce is cortisol. And the adrenals have a lot to do with coping with stress. And which is good if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. You need that flight or fight. But constant stress of being worried about your boss, financial situations, relationships, what's happening in the world, if that's stressing you out, your adrenals can be just weakened and fatigued and giving you this fatigue. So what are the symptoms of adrenal fatigue? One of the symptoms is being tired for seemingly unexplained reasons. Well, it has to do primarily with cortisol levels. In normal functioning, cortisol levels are very low when you're sleeping, and you wake up, they start rising, and you're most alert during the morning hours, and gradually those taper off towards bedtime, and then you go to sleep. Well, cortisol deficiency, or adrenal deficiency, or fatigue, whatever, they're low in the morning and stay low. In the afternoon, you've got a crash going on. And then most people start getting a second wind in the evening, and at night you think you're getting asleep, but your body is more alert because the cortisol levels are higher, and it affects your sleep. You think you might be getting your full sleep in, but you're not. And then in the morning you're tired. You're wore out in the morning, and you stay wore out. In fact, you're even worse in the afternoon. So that's the main symptoms of adrenal fatigue, but there's others. One is a craving for sugar, and sugar is very bad for adrenal fatigue. You should not take sugar at all. Another is craving for salt, and salt is vital because adrenals affect the functioning of the kidneys. So you may be losing more salts than you should, so you need the salts. Generally, people with adrenal fatigue have a hard time coping with stress. As I mentioned, it could be any kind of stress, and a lot of stress is mental too. For example, if you go on a really fast roller coaster that's got a lot of loop-de-loops and ups and downs and whatnot, some people are energized by that. They're excited about it, and other people are scared, terrified. So how people react to a situation, you may have financial troubles and your next door neighbor may have financial troubles, but if it's stressing you out and it's not stressing them out, it's affecting your adrenal glands. Also, the daily news that we get. You should turn off anything that you cannot control. Does it help you to worry about what's happening in Somalia or any other country? Not if you can't do anything about it. It's not like you're being Pollyanna, but be realistic. You cannot take on the troubles of the world and do anything about it by worrying about it, by stressing out. Now, if there's things that you can do something about, do something about. But if there's nothing you can do about something, don't let it enter your brain and stress you out, because it's just harming you no, and it's not helping. Also, if you've got family in the military or whatever and they're in harm's way, you can't do anything about that. Just try feeling guilty because you're not in harm's way is not going to help them. Worrying about them is not going to help them. It's only hurting you. You know, if you go to YouTube, there's plenty of guided meditations or hypnosis or music or whatever to help you cope with stress. Maybe it's temporary, but that's one of the skills you need to learn is stress coping. The adrenals produce three main hormones related to stress: cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. Cortisol gives the body extra energy to combat stress. It helps with memory function and it lowers the sensitivity to pain. But it needs a rest from stress. If it doesn't get the rest from stress, less and less cortisol is produced over time, and adrenal fatigue. Adrenaline is probably the best known hormone produced by the adrenal gland, which gives you that burst of energy for the fight or flight, that's it, to escape that saber-toothed tiger. But prolonged stress, again, results in adrenal fatigue. Norepinephrine is helpful for the brain to cope with the stress. With low levels, you tend to be lethargic and not having mental clarity. One reason that some doctors don't believe in adrenal fatigue is how it's tested. A lab test may not show anything wrong with you. For optimum levels might be up here, and disease levels are down here, but somewhere in the middle, it's not black and white, it's gray, and those things don't show up generally on lab tests. The same with thyroid conditions. Optimal, diseased. And disease with adrenals could be extremely serious in producing autoimmune disorders, but the gray areas are where people don't feel right. And they tell their doctor they don't feel right, and some of them get the response, it's all in their head. So what can you do to help your adrenals out? One thing is what you eat and when you eat it. When you eat is just as important as what you eat. So first of all, of course, avoid sugar. Well, you want to make sure you get a good breakfast. And you may not feel like having a good breakfast, but it's important. And it should include proteins and vegetables. And it's okay to have some whole grain, preferably non-gluten whole grains of some sort. And you want to avoid fruits in the morning. Fruits can be eaten in moderation later in the day, but not in the morning because they contain fructose and potassium, and that's supposed to disrupt your adrenals. So you want to have a snack in mid-morning, preferably including protein. Now proteins can include meat and eggs, dairy, cheese, lentils, quinoa, nuts, those type of things. But you want to avoid processed luncheon meats or cheeses that contain chemicals in them. They say to have an early lunch, preferably after 11. Now I know some people are restricted by their jobs as to when they can eat what, but try and follow this if possible to prevent your afternoon slumps. Again, lots of protein, and you can include protein shakes if you want. Vegetables, whatever. Midday snack around 2, 3 o'clock. Prevent those afternoon slumps. Again, protein is a good thing. And you should have dinner fairly early, like 5, 6 o'clock if possible, and have a light dinner. And then mid-evening, another snack, and you can have a light snack before bed. And you want to get to bed fairly early, like 10 o'clock-ish, and be consistent with your sleep patterns. Now, things you want to avoid, of course, is sugar, but salt is good. And vitamin C does not stay stored. It's important to have it multiple times a day. If you could break up your vitamin C tablets into smaller pieces and have those throughout the day, that's cool. And the B vitamins, particularly B6 and especially B5. And there are adaptogens, they call it, herbs that are very helpful for adrenals. One of them is a licorice root, and that's probably one of the more important ones. There's Maca Root, there's Ashwagandha, and Rhodiola. And of course there's supplements you can buy for adrenals. They might be called adrenal stress or something like that. And you can find them at health food stores or supplement stores or get them online. It's also important to drink a lot of water throughout the day, balance your nutrition, get your omega-3 fatty acids, and eat well. Sleep well. And don't stress so much. Hi, this is Hilma Volk, and feel free to share this video with other people that might be helped. Make comments, like the video, and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.